fear Allah with regards to your treatment of women.
And in the very next sentence, he tells men to beat their wives.
See, Islam was ahead of its time.
My goodness, a religion from a prophet who claimed that women have semen and wet dreams is definitely ahead of his time.
Just a few hundred years ago in Britain, they were debating if a woman had a brain or not.
Wow, just wow, this man's pants has more fire than the genitalia of a woman with chlamydia.
If you're confused about the status of women in Islam,
why would anyone be confused about the state of women in Islam? The headlines coming from Muslim countries clear every doubt. Who hears about the incredible child marriage crisis in northern Nigeria and remains confused about the lofty view of women in Islam? For those who are still confused,
then let me share with you what our Prophet ﷺ taught us about women. And remember, what I'm about to mention, he ﷺ is addressing men here.
And also bear in mind that he sexually penetrated a 9-year-old girl as Allah intended.
He said, whoever is in charge of daughters and treats them generously, then they will act as a shield for him from the hellfire.
What is lacking in that statement is context. Muhammad said that with regards to a mother who gave her only meal to her daughters. So this quote applies to any parent, mother or father, and doesn't aim to confer any special privilege to the female child. Rather, the goal here seems to be to commend the generosity of a parent giving their only meal to a child as lowly as a daughter who is here today and tomorrow can be forcefully married to a 52-year-old prophet who gets to rape her on her 9th birthday. This is the Sunnah Guy, a famous Muslim influencer with over 1.5 million followers and 35.3 million likes on TikTok. One of his goals is to convince those wise enough to rely on TikTok for information that Islam has an amazing view of women.
He said about mothers, stay with your mother and be dutiful to her. Paradise lies beneath her feet, which means serving your mother will get you to paradise.
That's not what it means. That's what he wants it to mean. What he's ignoring is context. Muhammad said this as advice to a man who wanted to fight in jihad. It doesn't seem to extend to other fighting men in Islam. They must be ready to kill and be killed in the way of Allah, who will reward their effort with many sex slaves in this world. So how can the man who tempted his followers to go to war with the promise of raping blonde women suddenly believe
serving your mother will get you to paradise?
Kudos to the Sunnah Guy. I mean, he proves that quote mining Muhammad can be a very lucrative business on TikTok.
Here's how I gained 1 million followers in less than 4 months. I've developed a formula that works.
Now here comes a quote from Muhammad about women that on the surface sounds amazing, but on closer inspection is hideous.
He said about wives, the world and all things in this world are precious, but the most precious thing in this world is a virtuous woman.
That wasn't said about wives, but about a virtuous woman. And who is a virtuous woman? Do they even exist in Islam? No, according to the same Muhammad, women are ungrateful creatures who would never remember a favor done to them. He likens women to a rib. They can't be straightened or else they will end up broken, and they can only be beneficial when crooked. In another hadith, he likens women to devils. He also said there is no calamity more detrimental to men than women. Hence, he advised women to give alms because Allah has shown him hell and most of its inhabitants were women. We have a greater chance of finding Bigfoot and unicorns than we do of finding a virtuous woman in Islam. Now here is the most outrageous quote mining from the Sunnah Guy in his pathetic attempt to prove that women are special in Islam.
And to conclude, he said, fear Allah with regards to your treatment of women.
And in the very next sentence, he tells men to beat their wives. That's an essential part of what it means to fear Allah regarding women. But he's not done.
I don't know of any belief system that places as much emphasis on the treatment of women and elevating their status than Islam.
Wow, just wow, this man's pants has more fire than the genitalia of a woman with chlamydia.
Islam came over 1400 years ago and was delivered to a backward nation who used to torture and abuse women. This broke the status quo and challenged the narratives at the time.
Yes, that's so true. I mean, a good look at Afghanistan, Iraq and Iran shows how Islam has changed the status quo and liberated women. The alarming rate of female circumcision in Muslim majority countries is indeed clear proof that Islam is changing the status quo. But the Sunnah Guy isn't done. He has to end this on a high note.
Oh, and let's not forget, just a few hundred years ago in Britain, they were debating if a woman had a brain or not.
Even cavemen have never doubted the existence of a woman's brain. But this joker claims that Britain, a kingdom with 8 queens, the first ruling as early as the 12th century, didn't know that women had brains. But in the exact words of Muhammad, the greatest feminist to ever live, women have a deficiency of intelligence. That's why the Quran in Surah 2 verse 282 establishes that the evidence of 2 women is equal to that of 1 man.
See, Islam was ahead of its time.
My goodness, a religion from a prophet who claimed that women have semen and wet dreams is definitely ahead of his time.
And is not a religion of women's rights, but it's a religion that empowers justice, kindness, and honorable treatment for women.
Yes, you better believe it. When an Arabian prophet in his 50s rapes his prepubescent child bride, that's the true definition of
justice, kindness, and honorable treatment for women, elevating their status in this world and a means of entry to paradise for those who take care of them well.
Keep in mind that the best Muslims are those during the time of Muhammad, of whom Aisha decried their treatment of women. She hadn't seen any woman suffer more than the Muslim woman during their time. In one day after Muhammad gave men the license to hit their wives, wife beating became an epidemic with many reports coming to the family of the prophet. But the Sunnah guy still goes on to say this:
because the true nature of a woman is wanting to be loved and looked after, and Islam is the religion that encourages that the most.
Yes, who cares what Aisha had to say about the pitiful state of women in Islam? After all, her testimony is half that of a man. And yes, Muhammad was promoting love and care towards women when he said that she comes in the form of a devil.
And we're proud of that.